So here I am with my friend Greg DeMarco, and we're back with session 7 of our discussion on John Maxwell's book, Everyone Communicates, Few Connect. And I was mentioning to Greg here a minute ago that it's early. It's early on the West Coast. We had to change our timing. So for me, it's like 7 o'clock in the morning, and so he's fortunate. He's on the East Coast, or not quite on the East Coast, but he's on the east side of the country. And well, actually, Toronto, they think they're the center of the universe. But
Oh, I was waiting for that.
anyway, I got my coffee. See, I got my coffee, so we should be okay. But anyway, we're going ahead with chapter 7 of Everyone Communicates, Few Connect. So how you doing today, Greg?
It's all good. It's paradise here today. We've had a great run of weather right to the end of October, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. It's like 20 degrees out, sunny, leaves
Yeah,
have changed. It's just beautiful.
I heard that you were having some unseasonably warm weather there.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think last week, weren't you complaining about the rain?
I never complained, Don.
Oh, I see.
It's a waste of energy.
Yeah. Well, no one wants to listen to a complainer. That's what they say, right?
Yeah, that's right. So, anyway, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, we're looking forward to today, and they got a busy day, and yeah, it's all going to be good.
All right. Well, what do you have for us today?
It's just Everyone Communicates, Few Connect. Is an interesting book. That John wrote. I think it's one of his first ones, and I think one of the things he likes to talk about in this chapter is simplicity. How important it is to keep things simple. And the title of it is chapter 7, but the title is "Connectors Do the Difficult Work to Keeping It Simple." And I think that's absolutely true. And one of the ways that I think you can tell if something's simple is if you can, not if you can tell it's simple, but if you can take something complicated and make it simple for someone so that they can understand it. And I think sometimes as salespeople, that's what we need to be doing, is we need to be taking our processes, which can, at first glance to somebody can be complicated, right? It can just overwhelm them. And then we try to make it simple so that they can understand it and grasp hold of it.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I think. But how
No,
about you?
it's 100%. The biggest mistake I made when I was in the boat business when I first started was I attempted to explain the intricacies of boat building and how great the thickness of a fiberglass hull is and the comforts. And I went from bow to stern, and I couldn't make any sales. It was my first boat show. And back in those days, if you didn't sell anything, you didn't have a job at the end of the show. so,
So
so after the first weekend, I was just sort of very discouraged. And then my manager came up to me and he said, sometimes people don't need to know all those details because really they don't care. He goes, just listen to what they're telling you, like what they're asking you. And he goes, what it'll boil down to is maybe two or three things, like what's the color, what colors does it come in? You know, does it have snap out carpet? How much storage is in there? And is it safe? And as soon as I clued into that and I changed and I asked them, what's most important to you in a boat? And they'd say those things. I said, it comes in red, blue, yellow, black. It has snap out carpet and it's one of the safer boats in the market. Let's go inside and just have a seat and see what you think.
So you were trying to dazzle them with your brilliance.
Oh, dazzle them with my, wow, this boat has these lifting strakes and there's chine that's at 13 degrees and the deadlift is it.
We
Just like,
would we would
buddy.
call that dazzling with their brilliance or baffling with your bullshit.
Yeah,
One of the others.
yeah. Well, I was so into it, but the enthusiasm, I got 100% on enthusiasm, but man, they just look at me and go, well, you're a nice guy, but
Yeah,
there's always the
yeah.
but, right? But
Well,
that's
that's
it.
the next point that or one of the points that John makes later is he says you need to focus on your audience, and when you're going into all those details, you're not focusing on the audience. And your sales manager, that's what he came and he told you to do. He says, focus on your audience, find out what's important to them, right?
Well, that's just it. And I think that's a critical point in this whole conversation is the more you focus on the individuals in front of you and actually put some care into what they think and how they feel, you're going to hit on those markers, and that's what you're going to talk about because that's what's important to them, and that's so important to your whole. If we're tying this book into sales, they don't care what the technicality behind things are. They just want to know that that's going to fit their lifestyle. So if it's a real estate agent, is that house going to fit the needs of what we're trying to do with buying a house, right?
Yeah. I got to beg to differ with you a little bit. Some people are going to want to know the details.
Very few, very few. That's you, and
Those are
maybe the
those are
other
the,
5% out of the 100%.
those. It's about 20% actually. I think that the C personalities are,
No, you're
but
right. You're right. There is a small, very small percentage of people that will ask, and I get that sometimes with a lot of, but they're far and few between. But you do have to know your stuff. Without
yeah,
doubt.
yeah. The thing is that you know your stuff, so that when you focused on your client, when you focus on who you're connecting with, you can understand what their need is. So if I have a need to know more about the details of the boat, you can fill that need because but
Hmm.
you don't go automatically out there and start spewing
Exactly.
that
You
stuff, right?
follow
So
you follow the cue of the person in front of you. If they're
yeah,
asking those kinds of tech, when I used to sell appliances way back when, they used to nobody ever they just wanted a washer and a dryer, for example, that was big enough to hold a king, comforter or whatever. But I would never get into the details of how the thing functioned. But there were the odd few, you're right, who would say, what's the energy rating on this? Or, what does the V drive direct drive do now? And then you're like, okay. But
yeah,
that's right. You have to follow the needs
yeah,
of those.
yeah. Find out what's important to them, and consistency matters too,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Building strong connections requires consistent effort and genuine engagement. That's a thing. Yeah, my wife and I, you know, I'm going to show my age again, but you'll probably remember the show. In the old days, there was a TV show called Leave It to Beaver.
Leave it to Beaver.
Leave It to Beaver, and it was a story about this young boy. He was probably 9 or 10 years old, and he had an older brother who was 12 years older, preteen or
Hmm.
something like that, who had a friend called Eddie Haskell.
Yeah.
And Eddie Haskell every time he'd see Mrs. Cleaver, Wally and Beaver's mother, he'd say, "That's a lovely dress you're wearing, Mrs. Cleaver." He just like real, slick, tried to be slick, type of
Yeah.
thing. And it always reminded me of, a salesman. Sometimes, they want to be, smooth or slick, and it comes across as being real phony. So I
Well,
think
and I
that,
think that's a really good point you're making because I think that's it has to everything has to be authentically you and you have to be genuine about it. But I think that's what happens sometimes is, I think we forget that everything is a conversation. It's all just a conversation. I think I think salespeople sometimes have a tendency to think it's more than that. And it's just a conversation. If you can direct your attention to the person in front of you and actually genuinely get a feel for what they want, they're going to have that feeling when they speak with you. They're going to start to know, like, and trust you because you're a calming influence in front of them and not some greaseball salesperson who's just trying to take them for a commission check.
yeah, yeah, that kind of leads into one of the other points that John makes is we need to be making an emotional connection. And, I would think that buying a boat can be very much an emotional decision. And same with buying a house. We always, and people always buy. I think I've heard that said once before, is that people always buy emotionally. They buy based on their emotions. and then they try to justify it logically,
Yeah.
you know. So because sometimes people say, well, I'm just going to make a logical decision. I'm going to get all the details and make a logical decision. But that's not the way people buy. They might want to buy that way,
I saw that in the yacht business, huge. They want to be logical about it, but then they fall in love with the brass and the chrome and all the fine rugs and the furniture, and all of a sudden the water looks more blue and the sky is just shining. You know what I mean? It takes them down this roller coaster of, okay,
yeah.
it's no longer about, it's about this. I'm just falling in love with it. It's a feeling.
Well, I know when you're showing a house or showing a condo or showing a piece of property to somebody, if you watch your client, you can watch, you can understand their level of interest in the property by the expressions on their face. Particularly women, I think, because they're generally, shouldn't generalize, you'll get you in trouble, but it's interesting, that people do, they do indicate, when they've invested emotionally into a product or into something. So I think we find that out when we just watch what's happening, and we need to be careful that we don't take advantage of that too.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think it all comes down to, if you've got the great intentions going into a conversation and the intention of understanding the audience or the people in front of you. A lot of it comes down to being clear on your own communications, right? And John Maxwell talks about being concise and focused. And, less is more when it comes to that. In other words, why get technical with everything? It's like a doctor who has to tell you about something that's wrong with you, but instead of getting into a complete technical breakdown, he says, these things are happening, but we can cure it we can help it with these types of medication. It's not getting into huge detail, and if you want to know, you can ask him, but basically he's letting you know, here's what it is, and this is how we're going to fix it, kind of thing.
Well, well, unfor- on a lot of operations nowadays, you can actually watch a video on YouTube about it. So,
Well,
and
exactly.
that's not always recommended, depending on what kind of operation you're going to have. So, not advocating for doing that. I would do it, but that's me. I'm just weird. But I was talking to my cousin's husband the other day, and he just had a knee operation, and he said, and we were talking about the fact that you could get watch a video on how to do the knee operation. I actually did that once, and I was it's surprising, like, just, you might not want to do it, especially if you're anticipating having a knee operation. But yeah.
Yeah, I
Anyway,
don't know about that myself, but
that you would watch it.
I don't know. When I had my heart attack and they went in through my wrist, you could see it on the TV right there when they're
Yeah,
doing it, right? So
yeah.
at first you're kind of like, geez, that's not a TV show, that's me. But you kind of look at it and you go, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, well, that's when you're making the emotional connection with your doctor, right? So,
Yeah, yeah, that's about right.
authenticity and communication fosters trust and deeper relationships. So authenticity is an important part, and I think that's, we go back to the first point, where John talks about keeping things simple, and I think being authentic is also part of keeping things simple. When we are authentic, we're looking for what's important to the individual. I'm looking for what's important to Greg. When I'm working with Greg, I'm not looking for, what's going to make me sound, intelligent or smart or whatever. But I think that's a big mistake that we make, is we complicate things too much, and we don't keep things simple, and we aren't as authentic as we could be.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think that a lot of it has to come down to, I'm just a big proponent of being as authentic as you possibly can be, with the intention of finding out who somebody is and why they want what they want or desire. I think that goes a long way. And the more vulnerable you become as far as asking them direct questions, people love to know that you're interested in them. They love that and they soak it up. So the more that you can show that you're interested in them, the more they're going to talk and the more they're going to be more comfortable with you. I think that's just, you know, it's an important factor, right?
Yeah, John makes a comment in his book. He says, in the end, people are persuaded not by what we say, but by what they understand. So that,
Well, that's
that
a
goes
really
back.
good point. Yeah.
You know, that goes, I think, to that simplicity is the key, and that value, authenticity, because they won't uh, um, they won't understand something that's not authentic. It's we can try to be at least I don't think we can, but maybe I have to think about that a little bit more too. But anyway,
Well, I think, avoiding the complication of over talk or jargon, just keep things simple. That is a good point, actually, Don, because I never thought of it that way, and I think that that's exactly what it is. I think it's people understanding what it is you're saying. So if you want somebody to understand what you're saying, don't overcomplicate it with a bunch of jargon or fancy dancy words. Just keep it simple, stupid. That kind of analogy, because it is exactly that they want to understand. If they understand it, then they're more likely to respond in a favorable way.
of course, that if you're in sales, and I think it all depends on what you're selling as well, right? Because if you're selling space equipment or aeronautical equipment or something like that, that gets pretty complicated. But I think you have to figure out how to simplify your process.
Yeah, no matter what. I mean, when I'm talking to somebody about um, medical things or nutrition, I sometimes have to say, "Hey, can you really dumb this down for me?"
Yeah,
Of course, I'm a simple guy as it is, but
yeah. Well, yeah. I'm not going to say nothing.
yeah, I figured you'd just be quiet on that. You just be quiet, Don.
Yeah. Well, I think what happens is that when we practice these different principles, we're able to connect with people at all levels. So it doesn't really matter, what level a person is we're talking to, because they want to do, like we've mentioned before, people like to do business with those they know, like, and trust, right? So, and when we keep it simple, I think it's easier for them to develop the trust and in us, and they're more likely to want to do business with us. So
Yeah, no, agreed. So I
yeah,
think that's good.
that's great.
Yeah,
Well, I hope you have a good day, Greg. I mean, thank you for joining in with this short conversation on chapter 7. Connectors do difficult work of keeping it simple. And so we could talk for a little bit longer, but then we'd just be trying to talk for a little bit longer to make our video longer. So
let's just be direct, shall we? That's good.
yeah, so keep it simple. That's, I think, and understand how keeping it simple works best for you, because I think that's going to differ in different circumstances. So, but keep it simple for you. Keep it simple for what you're selling. Keep it simple for your client, and that's at different levels for everybody. So,
Good stuff.
all righty,
Thanks, Don.
take care.